authorized to fire at will.
Hey, I'd like to say thanks for stopping by, but right now I'm the only one here, but that's all right. You guys will catch us at some point, so thanks for stopping by. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you have liked my videos, that you are subscribed, and that you're checking out the bell icon down below to make sure that you are getting notifications when I do crazy things like go live to talk about news that's on my mind. And it's expanding. It's not just local to me anymore. Now my news is going to be coming from all over, and I'm finding out that I have a lot of interesting stories. The first thing that I want to start with today is just kind of a heartfelt plea to anybody who might be out there and is of the praying sort. Little town roughly 20 miles away from us was pretty much wiped off the face of the map on Tuesday evening, little town of Teope, Minnesota. And the meteorologists, the experts, if you will, have determined that it was probably a high-end EF2. Nobody was killed. There were a few people injured, but it was pretty much devastated. And it's of little comfort to the people who are there to say, well, at least you didn't die, when they have lost pretty much everything. And the wheels of bureaucracy grind very slowly here in the United States, but especially here in the state of the people's state of Marxisota. And so what we're dealing with is a long, laborious process for these poor people as they go to rebuild their community. Drove through it yesterday, and I was devastated at what I saw. So if you would, please be in prayer for them. And prayer is great, but if you know of a way to aid or benefit the people of Teope in any way, shape, or form, please let's band together and see what we can come up with for them. So what are we going to talk about today? First I want to, after this little opening with Teope, I want to talk also about a documentary that's been making the rounds in the Patriot movement. And I'm going to be very brief on this because I think I'm going to end up doing a little bit of a breakdown on this documentary. There's this film out there going around. It's called Watch the Water. Ladies and gentlemen, please be cautious as you watch that documentary. Not saying you can't watch it. I'm not saying that you're bad if you do. I'm not saying they're bad for having made it. But if you're going to watch the Water, and you are a Christian, I'm going to ask that you dig down to the bottom of your dresser drawers and find your discernment cap and put it firmly on your head, and then pray for about 3 hours before you watch it, and just use logic and reasoning to respond to what you're seeing. Because so far the responses that I'm getting from people that have watched it are over the top enthusiasm. They're overly enthusiastic for how wonderful the deep dive is that this man has done, and how his life is at risk for exposing these things. And I just cannot say enough that there are plenty of problems with that particular documentary that Christians should be watching with a very, very, very discerning ear and eye. And not reading it, but watching it and listening to it through the lens of Scripture. Because that's the whole gist of this documentary is this person's approaching it as a Christian. So we have a heavy burden to then filter everything that he says through the lens of Scripture. So I'm going to move on now. If you remember last week, I was talking about how Commissar Walz of the People's State of Marxisota has put a moratorium on student debt in Minnesota. And not to be outdone. Now, remember, I forecasted that this was going to become a national thing, and that what they're doing is they're gearing up to end student loan debt. And sure enough, at about the same time, the Biden administration has announced that they too are going to be putting a moratorium on student debt. And let's see if I can find my story here. Yeah, there we go. White House to extend student loan pause through August. Now, why is this important? For one, we have to remember the vast majority of people who are having their debt, their interest, if you will, paused are wealthy. They're the wealthy. That's what it is. Most of the people who are racking up massive amounts of debt when it comes to college, to university, whatever you want to call it, are wealthier people. So this is really not benefiting the downtrodden and the poor, because most of the downtrodden and the poor work their way through local college, community college, smaller universities, and whatnot. And so this is really, ironically, for the administration and the left and the Democrat Party, who are constantly decrying how the wealthy are getting one over on everyone else. They are flat out helping the vast majority of the people who would be considered the wealthy elite in the United States. And this is just another move towards completely forgiving student debt. And what I want people to understand about that is what about the people who have already paid off all their college loans, all their debt from the university? What about them? We're gonna go back? Are we gonna basically give reparations to them? I dare say they won't do that, will they? They shall not, because they're going for that young socialist Marxist vote, because after years of inculcation with leftist ideology in the government-run schools and the state-run schools, these kids are now prone to think that way. And so they're out there pandering to them because they have their hands out going, please, we shouldn't have to pay for this. It should be free. I shouldn't have to be in debt to go out and make a living. You know, you might want to rethink that master's degree you have in female sexual theory. Just a thought, not saying that you can't get it, but you might have wanted to take up something like underwater basket weaving, because it would have come in much more handy than lesbian dance theory would have at this point in time. So yeah, just keep in mind that's where they're aiding the wealthiest amongst us, and they're also, shall I say, setting us up for the next round, which will be eventual complete forgiveness of all current student loans. And it's going to be an economic nightmare, because that'll be more billions and billions of dollars poured into an economy that is already suffering. So here we are. I am going to share with you now a little bit from our esteemed commissar, Commissar. I think we'll just go ahead and stick with Commissar. So Commissar Walls is shilling for his Walls checks again, ladies and gentlemen. And his insistence is that it's a long-term investment. So let's take a look here. I do this on my own. I don't have a producer, ladies and gentlemen, so you're just going to have to bear with me. So he's you can see it right here. Walls checks, long-term investments, right? And so here's what he says. The best way to help Minnesotans manage rising costs is to put more money in their pockets right now. We have a historic budget surplus. Let's use some of it to send checks daily directly to Minnesotans, or send checks directly to Minnesotans. My plan will give Minnesota families up to $1,000. How about instead of, I don't know, taking that almost $10 billion surplus, historic surplus. I mean, he's bragging about this confiscatory policies that the Dems and their commissar have put in place have stripped Minnesotans, of hardworking Minnesotans, of their money. Have stripped hardworking Minnesotans of their money. That's all there is to it. And in doing so, along with some federal funds, which, by the way, are also our hardworking taxpayer money, being stripped from us through confiscatory practices, the threat of force, it is theft. Taxation is theft. I don't care if you like that terminology or not. That's what it is. So they're going to take this near $10 billion and they want to give massive amounts of money to a failing education system because, throwing more money at education is the answer, right? And then they want to turn around and to pocket or should we say soften the blow of what's coming. They want to pad the pockets of Minnesotans to convince them to go ahead and vote for the left in the next election. And I'm afraid it's going to work in Minnesota because too many people are walking around here with their hands out going, gimme, gimme, gimme. They think that somehow this is going to help. And I'll tell you what this is going to do is, one, it's going to create an incentive in people to not work. We've already seen that play out with the increase in the unemployment benefits during the coup pandemic measures. And furthermore, it's going to create an artificial sense of safety net for people, because $1,000 now, even compared to 2 years ago, doesn't go anywhere near where it needs to go or needed to go to provide for expenses. And that's actually going to flood the economy with worthless paper money, or digital, if you want to even use that terminology. It's going to actually cause more inflation. That's what they want. They want to create a dependency in the voting base so that they continue to vote for the people who continue to promise to give them more. And then they want to continue to jack up inflation, which will then jack up the prices, which will then continue to jack up the amount of money that's taxed. Because let's just keep in mind, as inflation sets in, as a fiscal policy of both the Federal Reserve, which, by the way, is a private organization, it is not an elected or appointed group. The Federal Reserve is a private organization jacking around with the national economy, which then jacks around the state economies and the local economies, causes prices to go up, causes earnings to go down. And as that happens, then taxation continues to grow, which means there's going to be even more surplus because people are going to continue to be taxed at completely irresponsible confiscatory rates, so that they could turn around and say, we're going to give you some more money. That's what they're going to do. And people are buying into it. And it's sickening. It honestly, it has to stop. People need to pull their heads out of their collective derrieres and realize that this is nothing more than a drive to pad their pockets. The next story I want is a national story, and I want to share this with you guys because I shared a story about Iowa last week, requiring that the curriculi that will be taught in all schools in the state of Iowa have to be available to the parents for full disclosure. The complete curricula. Period. End of story. They passed a law. And of course, everybody's up in arms in that. Everybody's up in arms with Florida's policy about sexual indoctrination of children up to a certain age. I guess once they get to a certain age, it's okay. But we don't want you to mess with our kids at an early age. You mess with them when they get older. Just don't mess with them now. But a Virginia group has won a little bit of a victory here. Virginia parents fighting race-based admissions policy wins legal battle as case heads to Supreme Court. A Virginia parent and former PTA president who openly criticized what he categorized as race-based admissions at an elite public high school was delivered a win Friday after 4 criminal charges were dropped. Dr. Harry Jackson, a father and former naval intelligence officer, opposed a policy at Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology in Alexandria, Virginia, that based admissions more on race and less on merit. Steve Descano, a Democrat prosecutor backed by billionaire George Soros, who amongst us is shocked? Ladies and gentlemen, are any of you shocked? Pursued criminal charges of libel and slander against Jackson over tweets published in 2020. Jackson, also a professor at numerous other universities and the African American community liaison for Fairfax GOP, had accused liberal activist Jorge Torrico of grooming behavior. So basically what they did is they filed these false allegations against him to silence him, to keep it from going forward. And, you know, here's what's ironic about that story is I had the exact same thing happen to me in my case, where I took on what is now a notable case here in the state of Minnesota. The prosecuting attorney and the chief of police of Albert Lee filed false allegations against me. This is their tool. This is the tool of the left. When you take them on an intellectual level and you have the argument to beat them, they come up with a way to try and silence you. And that is to try and bring law down on top of you. So this Virginia parent, along with the rest of the group now, are going to be able to move forward to stop this, so that people are now going to be forced to do what they shouldn't have to be forced to do, which is to look at the merits of the individual and say, yes, you qualify or you don't. That is not racism. That's meritocracy. And there are flaws in meritocracy, but meritocracy is better than ethnic cronyism or ethnic discrimination, where you look at a person and say, basically, oh, the white person's not going to qualify, even if they are qualified, because you as a minority of some sort, of some ethnicity, you are never going to make it on your own. So we have to do this for you. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why we have to fight these things. It's incredibly important that we fight these things. I don't have any. Nobody's watching. That's all right. I don't mind. I just like to do this mostly to get it off my chest. Oh, let's see. What's another good one that we can cover? Oh, here's the one I wanted to look at. So, ladies and gentlemen, Minnesota could see an impeachment. U.S. court agrees with impeachment charge of Walz, North Star Liberty Alliance. Now, I know the people at North Star Liberty Alliance. They are a phenomenal organization. They do not deny a bias in their reporting, which is fine, because quite frankly, most of the papers in Minnesota and the media outlets in Minnesota are incredibly biased, and North Star Liberty Alliance is one of the counters to all of that. For years now, Minnesotans from nearly every walk of life have been trying to hold Governor Walz accountable for his far-reaching, unprecedented executive orders. This includes articles of impeachment against Walz, which were introduced in 2021. With a single stroke of his pen, Walz affected untold millions of Minnesotans by shutting down businesses, churches, and schools. Since his initial lockdown orders, he has fended off nearly every lawsuit, and that is until now. In a ruling that was published on April 5th, the U.S. Court of Appeals reversed a lower court's ruling that dismissed a case against Walz for his March 23rd, 2020 eviction moratorium. Now, so those of you that aren't aware, Walz, like many others, said, "Oh, now we've got this serious coof pandemic going on. Landlords, you can't kick people out of their homes for not paying their bills. You can't. You're going to have to continue to pay your debt. You're going to have to continue to pay your mortgage. You're going to have to continue to pay for upkeep and stuff, but they don't have to pay their rent. We're putting a moratorium on this." And I know for a fact that there have been several people that have suffered through this and have ended up losing their businesses, their rental properties, which is their business, their investment. They've lost it because they can't pay their mortgages on these properties. So the deadbeats win, the entrepreneurs lose, and then some big corporation then swoops in, buys these rentals up, and they get to change, to change things up and continue to make money. I'm not calling this a conspiracy. I'm just telling you this is how these things play out. So what ended up happening is they filed an impeachment process against Walz, saying that what he did was unlawful and a violation of the Constitution. And of course, the lower court stepped in. Oh, no, he was working in the interest of the public good. He could actually end up facing impeachment charges now for this. Which if he does, and I hope he does, that means that opens him up to personal civil liability in this case, so that he will then have to defend himself. The state will not be required to, nor should they have to pay for it. And he could actually end up having to come out of pocket to not only pay for his own defense, but the courts could find him personally liable if what he did was a violation of the Constitution. And I would tell you that most constitutional experts are starting to lean towards this being definite violation of constitutional protections for individuals. So I think it's good news for me. Anytime he loses something, it's good news for Minnesota. Let's see here. Let's go. Oh, here we go. This is the other one. So if you guys remember, I've been telling everybody, look, I'm not a prophet. I don't claim to be a prophet. I just watch what's happening, right? I watch to see what's going on. And if you're paying attention, there's always something. There's just always something to be aware of. And I've been telling people, the Russo-Ukrainian conflict has been a move to keep our eyes off of what they're doing, and something else is going to come along. Well, inflation comes along, things ramp up there. People are paying attention to what's happening in Ukraine, what's happening with inflation, and on and on and on. Well, guess what? A new coof wave is probably coming, and America just doesn't seem to care, right? So we've got people like Fauci out there and others telling us, hey, there's another wave coming. Now, every single time they tell us another wave is coming, it comes. It miraculously produces itself. Well, why is this happening all of a sudden? We've seen 80% of the population has been compliant with at least one jab, if not many boosters, right? Over and over and over again. People are compliant there. Most people were compliant with stay-at-home orders. Most people were compliant with the mask dates. Most people were compliant with lockdowns. Most people have been compliant with social distancing, on and on and on and on and on. And we were told that once they got a decent percentage of people jabbed, that all of this was going to go away. Well, it's not going away, ladies and gentlemen. Why not? Here's why not. Because they need another distraction. The political theorist and the philosopher Saul Alinsky, a student of Antonio Gramsci, wrote in his Rules for Radicals, and I'm paraphrasing, once your opponent gets used to dealing with one thing, you come at them from a different direction with another thing to keep them off kilter. What has been going on since March of 2020, ladies and gentlemen? One thing after another. Just when you get used to and adjusted to one thing, they come at you with something else. It's over and over and over. So we'll see, right? What's going to happen this time? What's going to be the real case here? And along with that, we've got a a report from just a couple of days ago that while everybody else has loosened their restrictions on mask mandates and social distancing and whatnot, the feds, true to form, are extending the mask mandate aboard planes, trains, buses in the U.S. until May 3rd. Now, this isn't just like if you're a federal worker on federal property. This is the federal transportation mask mandate is being extended for another 15 days, meaning individuals traveling aboard airplanes, train, and on public transportation in the entire United States will be required to wear a mask until at least early May. Why? Can anybody, please, can anybody give me an explanation as to why this is necessary? What ever-loving good is this doing for anyone? I mean, even Kim Norton, the Empress of Rochester, has dropped all of the mandates in Rochester. She just had no backing to keep doing it. Nobody was interested in complying anymore. So what's the purpose of this? What could be the reason they are putting these restrictions in place for public transportation? Can anybody give me a good idea as to why that is continuing to be a thing? It probably seems I don't know. It just, to me, it's ridiculous. So some of you know that I have covered the story of Lisa Hanson over in Albert Lee a little bit, and I've pointed out some situations that I feel are a little ridiculous. And I've actually also had to counter a couple of other people who pointed out some things that they thought were ridiculous and pointed out, okay, this person actually served more time than what it appears they did, but, yada, yada, yada. But here in Minnesota, now this is a different jurisdiction, but here in Minnesota, we've got a Parker Prairie man convicted on sex charges. This man has been sentenced on felony sex charges. 33-year-old Zachary Levi Whitmer was convicted of one count of second-degree sexual assault. His victim was under the age of 13. He will undergo a psychological examination and assessment, along with a list of stringent requirements. He was sentenced to 90 days in jail and 25 years of probation. You want to tell me again? Just once. Does one of you want to tell me one more time that the justice system in Minnesota is not corrupt? That it's not broken? I just once. Just tell me one time. That's all I want. I just want you to look me straight in the eye and tell me that the justice system in Minnesota is not corrupt. I'll wait. No, nobody? Okay. Because I'm going to tell you the justice system, after working for nearly 13 years inside of the law enforcement world on the detention end, the criminal justice system in the state of Minnesota is broken. From the streets all the way to the prisons. Criminal justice in the state of Minnesota is broken. It is designed to fail. It is designed to fail. It is designed to make you fail from start to finish. If you're in it, you're going to be stuck in it. And once they have a way to get you in it, they're going to do everything they can to keep you in it. It is modern slavery. And they will throw the book at someone who's committed no crime other than a made-up crime. They'll throw a book at someone like Lisa Hanson, but a sexual predator who's actually physically harmed someone in the state of Minnesota gets 90 days jail. Now remember, he gets that same 2/3, so he'll get out after 60 days, and he's on probation for 25 years. Now, you say 25 years is a long time. I agree. I guarantee you he's going to do something to end up screwing up his probation, even if it's not related to his original crime. I don't care if he's completely reformed, never does it again. It was a really bad, wicked, sinful decision. He did it one time. He got caught. He's doing his time. Fine. He's going to do something else. He's going to get a parking ticket, and he's going to forget to pay it, and he's going to end up back in the system. It's designed to make you fail. That's just what it is. Once they have you, and they will never let you go. They're never going to let you go. And that's how it's designed. And ask anybody in the world or in the state of Minnesota who's ever been involved with the justice system, especially once they've been into the correction system. It's a burden that no one can bear. It's almost impossible to overcome. And that's the way they want it. This is an interesting story, and I don't know how I feel about it, but I think it's really interesting. Minnesota Corrections hiring tattoo supervisor, hoping it leads to fewer reoffenders. The Minnesota Department of Corrections is hiring a tattoo supervisor, and it hopes the position will lead to fewer reoffenders. The department posted the job, which is based at Stillwater Correctional Facility, earlier this month, offering to pay between $59,000 and nearly $87,000 per year. The posting has raised some eyebrows. Now, that's a crap ton of money for a person to go in and supervise people giving tattoos. That's a crap ton of money. Now, good tattoo artists can make a lot more than that on their own. But this is a pilot program, and they're paying a person in this pilot program anywhere from $60,000 to $87,000 a year. That's ridiculous. Now, these guys are getting tattoos in prison. I saw it constantly over the near 13 years that I worked in that environment in Olmsted County in the sheriff's office at the detention center. These guys would go away to prison. They'd come back. They'd reoffend. They end up getting arrested, and they come back when they have new ink. I'm like, hey, dude, you got new ink. Where'd you get that? Oh, I got it in prison. You didn't get it on the street? No, I got this in prison. And then they laugh. Well, of course, we're not allowed to get tattoos. So here's their argument. According to the DLC, people who have felonies or jail time in their histories often face significant barriers when trying to get a job, and the tattoo industry is one field that often has opportunities. And that's true, but they love the fact that these people can't get jobs because it keeps them dependent, because normally part of their probation or their parole is to stay gainfully employed. And it's very hard for them to stay gainfully employed. It's kind of like the way child support works in the state of Minnesota. It's a civil offense. It's not a criminal offense. You technically aren't being charged with a crime. But if you don't pay your child support, which, by the way, you should, if you have a child and you're not paying your child support, you're not a man, or you're not a woman, you're not a mother, you're not a dad. But what happens in this situation is you don't pay, then they take your driver's license, then they arrest you for not paying until you can pay, and then they make you go and get a job. But then when you get the job lined up, you don't have a vehicle, you can't drive because you don't have your driver's license, and so you can't keep a decent job that pays you what you need to make so that you can pay your child support, because they sock it, especially the dads in Minnesota, for child support. Ask anybody who's ever been run through the ringer. This is not a dad-friendly state. And it's just a never-ending cycle. It's meant to keep you trapped. I know I sound like a broken record. It's because I am. But so here's a couple, stories related to corrections. So our esteemed governor stopped down in Rochester again, and he decided he was going to talk about some things he was going to do here in Minnesota. Governor Walz unveils plans for surplus money in Rochester. I just want everybody, I don't know if you guys can see the cursor very well, but I just want everybody to see all these tyrants in one room right here. Tyrant Torgey, Commissar Walz, and Commissar Norton, and the new head of the Department of Public Safety, and this kind of a weak-kneed chief of police for Rochester. But he came and he stopped at First Alliance Credit Union in Rochester, and he says, getting those tax-free checks into their hands as quickly as possible, we know one thing that it does, it takes the burden off those families. They also spend it into our economy. A tax-free check No, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to end up paying that back. Not to mention the fact that they tax the crap out of you to be able to give it to you in the first place. Taking from the state surpluses, aim is to adopt a similar program for stimulus checks. This proposal would allow 2.7 million Minnesotans 18 and older who make less than $164,400 annually to receive $500 each. Couples who file together would receive $1,000. Duh. If all of that gets spent, it is stimulus to the local economy. If everybody spent that money or did some things with it, First Alliance President and CEO Mike Rosick said. The second stop was at the Government Center, where Walz held a discussion with local law, fire, and government officials about a $300 million public safety plan. $2 million annually would go to funding Rochester public safety efforts. $2 million out of $300 million would go to Rochester. Now, Rochester definitely has a crime problem, ladies and gentlemen, a growing, burgeoning crime problem. Is $2 million enough? Well, I'm going to tell you from personal experience, Kevin Torgerson's going to need at least $2 million to cover all of the internal investigations he launches against his staff when they say something he doesn't like. Yeah, it's true. This story is very interesting, the one that I want to look at now, and this is a national story. Trump authorized assault on Capitol, January 6th, defendant argues at trial. So, yep. An attorney for Dustin Thompson argued that vulnerable people like his client believed the lies that were fed to them by Trump. So, this guy says that this guy authorized him to do what he did, so it's not his fault. An attorney for a man who took a coat rack and a bottle of liquor during that evil man took liquor from somebody in the Capitol building. No, never mind. Who took a coat rack and why a coat rack, dude? Seriously? I have a friend who's going to be coming on here with me on a regular basis once her life settles down, and she's a little bit of a comedian, and I guarantee you she'd have a bit to do about this. A coat rack and a bottle of liquor, that's the start of every bad "so what happened was" story that you hear on Saturday morning after a Friday night out. During the U.S. Capitol attack, argued to a jury Tuesday that former President Donald Trump authorized the assault on the building on January 6, 2021, by convincing vulnerable people like his client that the election had been stolen. Dustin Thompson, 38, of Ohio, is the third January 6 defendant to face a trial by jury after the conviction of Guy Reffitt and former police officer Thomas Robertson. Thompson faces 6 charges, including obstruction of an official proceeding and theft of government property. His co-defendant, and by the way, the government has no property. I'm just saying it somewhat cheekily. His co-defendant, Robert Lyon, pled guilty. And can we get some real reportage from now on, please? It's not pleaded, it's pled. Pled is the past tense of plead. Pled. He pled guilty, not pleaded. He pled guilty last month, admitting that he and Thompson traveled to Washington together and saying stole a coat rack and fled from police when they were confronted on the grounds of the Capitol. Samuel Shamsky, an attorney for Thompson, told jurors Tuesday that his client had snatched the coat rack foolishly, and there was no question that his client took part in this horrible event on January 6th that interrupted a solemn and sacred proceeding. But Sham argued that the genesis of the attack began months before January 6th, and responsibility fell at the feet of Trump, who authorized this assault on the Capitol. It was a plot, it was a scheme, it was a conspiracy that began at the highest levels of our government, Shamansky argued. Thompson and other vulnerable Trump supporters like him believed the lies that were fed to them in the months leading up to January 6th, he argued. Thompson was predisposed to this lunacy, Shamsky said, and losing his job at the beginning of the COVID pandemic left him sitting at home to digest the garbage that Trump and his supporters were spreading. This is the garbage that Dustin Thompson is listening to, he argued. Donald Trump encouraged people like Dustin Thompson to storm the Capitol. Ladies and gentlemen, No. If that's your argument for why you did what you did, you're an idiot. Oh, now you guys show up to comment. Thanks, Larry. Now you show up. Oh, you're funny. You're funny, K2. Thanks. He fled. Why didn't he flee? Yes, very true. Thanks for showing up. Yep. Now that I'm almost done, you guys are both fired. You got to get back in my good graces. Can't be friends when you show up late. There's a fine for that. That's like a $10 super chat for as late as you showed up. Yep, I said it. I'll just wait. Nobody's going home until I get what I want. No? All right. Here's the deal. Like, if Trump is responsible for these people and what they did on January 6th, I'm neither condoning or not condoning what happened. It was not an insurrection. But whatever happened to personal responsibility? So can I... That's true. I did force you to watch The Water out of love for you. Larry, you trying to tell me you want to leave? That's awesome. Kevin, you're next. Oh, that was great. So whatever happened to personal responsibility? Like, no, you guys made these decisions. Own it. You did it. You stole a coat rack. Like, I'm sorry. You deserve to be arrested for stealing. You broke into the Capitol building and all you stole was a coat rack and a bottle of liquor. That's the best you could come up with? You couldn't even steal like Nancy Pelosi's desk pen cup holder or what? You couldn't, nothing. That's all you could come up with. That was the best you could get. I'm like, you kind of deserve to be where you are. Now, I say that to be funny, but the reality is, like, there's personal responsibility here, and these people are being beat down, sometimes literally. But these people are being beat down. They're not being allowed to leave. Some of them have gone home to be hunted down and to be hauled back to Washington, D.C., locked up in solitary confinement 23 hours a day, no contact with the outside, if any contact with family or friends, over misdemeanors. Why? And then they're going to blame Trump. And there's a story that ties into this, and that goes like this. A former federal prosecutor said Ivanka Trump's January 6th testimony likely incriminated her father for his role in the Capitol riot. She has been cooperating with the committee investigating the Capitol riot. A former federal prosecutor said Ivanka Trump likely testified that she tried to get her father to call off his supporters. Committee chair Rep. Benny Thompson said Ivanka was answering questions. Oh, yeah, well, you told her she had to, or she'd be in contempt of Congress. Well, I got news for you. I have a lot of contempt for Congress. So there you go. Trump and his allies are facing a flurry of legal challenges this year. Investigations into his company's finances are ongoing, along with others related to January 6th. Because doesn't that sound retaliatory, by the way? I mean, that's right out of the Clinton playbook. We're going to come for you. We're going to find a way to make your life incredibly uncomfortable. That's right out of the Clinton playbook from the Clintons' time in office. So this individual is claiming that the things that Ivanka is saying are damning to her father. And I just don't see what I'm struggling with this, because it's hype. They're not telling us what she said. They're not telling us what actually transpired that he's responsible for. And that her telling him, she tried to get him to call off his supporters. Look, I listened to his speech from that day. No reasonable person is going to be moved to that level of violence if it was as really as violent as they say it is. And let's just remember, the only act of violence that it is verifiably proven to have ended in a death of anybody at the Capitol that day was by a Capitol police officer who in cold blood shot and killed Ashley Babbitt. That's it. Ashley Babbitt did nothing to deserve what she got. There were law enforcement officers standing directly behind her. And this guy flat out drew up, put a beat on her, and gunned her down in cold blood. Should she have been there? No. Does that mean she deserved to die? Nope. And we hear that all the time, right? He didn't deserve to die to be selling loose cigarettes. He didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve that. He didn't. Sometimes then they even have a gun. We get told they didn't deserve to die. No one's defending Ashley that way. So I guess what I'm getting at is we have to take a step back and ask ourselves, why is this being fed to us the way it's being fed to us? What's the purpose? What's the point? And why this constant drive to get us to believe a narrative? And I think we are all pretty sure of what that is. And I just want everybody to step back and ask, why are they trying so hard? And it's because they're absolutely dead set that Trump is coming back into office in 2024. They really think that he has a chance at it. And I don't care if he runs or not. I personally hope he doesn't. I think he's opened up a door for a lot of people to come in and to run and be effective. And there's a lot of talk about a red surge this year. One of the things I want people to understand that very well could be the case, but I also want my conservative friends to take a step back and not get so stoked that all of these people apparently are leaving the Dems and coming over to the Republican side, because it wouldn't be the first time in the history of the United States where they planted subversive people into the party to act as spoilers. Historically, it happens. I want to talk just briefly about a little bit of a story that's taking place here in Minnesota right now, which I think is indicative of what corruption within political parties looks like. This last summer, if I can find it, there were a couple of DFL party leaders who well, let me look it up here. Let me see. I'll just talk about it without showing it. Julie Blaha. Well, maybe I can do that. Julie Blaha, she's running for auditor, I believe it is, here in Minnesota. Yeah, here we go. Sorry, I didn't have this one ready. Yeah, you're right, Larry. The fact that Ashley Babbitt's shooting faced no consequences is heartbreaking, enraging, and disheartening. Right, absolutely. So as you guys are aware, Sheriff Hutchinson of Hennepin County got a DUI last year, tried to bring social legal pressure on an independent reporter who was reporting about it, tried to scare her into not covering the story, not putting out any pictures that she took, put pressure on her family to try and scare them. That backfired. He was asked to resign. He refused to resign, but now he's not running again, which has opened up a whole can of worms about all the people that are running. There's 75 people all running for sheriff in Hennepin County. I think 2 of them are qualified. And at least one of them is going to be coming on for a conversation about what makes him the best candidate for sheriff of Hennepin County. But Minnesota Republicans question investigation into car crash involving 2 DFL leaders. State Auditor Julie Blaha was cited for failing to yield in the August 4th rollover crash. The report says that an open alcohol container was found in the vehicle, yet nobody was charged with an open container violation. Now, Blaha has come out and said, I passed the PBT, the portable breath test, with flying colors. She didn't argue with that. So they didn't charge her. But there are rumors that leadership for the Democrats were called to the scene. And just the fact that it was her and Minority Leader Melissa Lopez Franzen were there, and they sounds like they kind of threw their weight around a little bit on this, a little bit like Hutchinson did when he got his DUI. It was kind of a "do you know who I am" situation. Now, look, if they weren't drunk, they shouldn't be charged with a DUI. They shouldn't get charged with a crime just because of who they are. However, why didn't they get charged with the open container? Because what their statement is, ladies and gentlemen, their statement is we were taking the cans to recycling. The report states that it was a open, very cold, mostly full can of White Claw. Now, their judgment should be questioned for drinking White Claw in the first place. And as my friend Walter said, no one ever got drunk on White Claw anyway. Not the point, Walt. Although it's a good comment. The issue is why did this not go bigger? And 2, why you roll a vehicle in a failure to yield, you have an open container, and nothing happens to you. You don't get charged. Like, that would ruin the lives of so many people in a situation like that. Imagine being an off-duty cop, open container, no DUI, under the legal limit, roll your car, have a White Claw. Well, first of all, that would ruin your reputation with all the other officers. You would be the laughing. You would have to go, and you'd have to move to like Poughkeepsie to hide from the fact that you're drinking a White Claw. But how do you escape attention on that? How is that even right? So I guess what I'm getting at is this is how sick the system has become, ladies and gentlemen. It's how sick it's become. It's no different than John Thompson when he was running for House. Shows up in Hugo, Minnesota, and threatens to burn the entire city down because he doesn't like somebody who lives there, Bob Kroll and his wife. They threaten to burn down the city of Hugo if they don't get rid of Bob Kroll. It's disgusting. If I did that, I'd be charged. It's about who you know, and it's about being part of the right party, and it's about being the right person saying the right thing. So that's where we're at for news this week. I'm sure there are other stories I could have covered, but these are the things that really had me thinking. I was going to talk a little bit about Sheriff Torgerson's pitch to not want rifle hunting in Southeast Minnesota. I don't know if it's a big deal. I'm not going to say it's an infringement on the Constitution. I just think it's a petty thing for a sheriff to fight. It's just something to look good, to say we've never had it before and we're not going to have it now and it's just too dangerous. The vast majority of people hunting in Southeast Minnesota are incredibly responsible hunters. And we have an out-of-control deer population that apparently is suffering from chronic wasting disease. And we in the deer population is like, deer season is no longer when you go out and hunt deer. Deer season is every day when the deer are hunting your vehicle. That's how bad it's gotten. I can count on any given day the number of deer laying on the side of the highway is at least 10 to 15. That's a lot of dead deer from vehicle collisions. We've got to do something to get the deer population under control. So, thank you for watching. If you haven't bought merchandise yet, I've got this nice merchandise area set up. I've got coffee. I've got nice mugs. Yes, Larry, I know you want full bean so you can grind it yourself, but ask Kevin. Kevin drinks my coffee. He knows how good it is. We've got really nice little keychains. I've got these really nice slate coasters that are made by Kim and his wife. The coffee's made by Brandon and his wife down at Indy's Coffee. So until now, in the end of April, we got 16 more days. If you buy merchandise, I'm going to be donating a portion of my proceeds to the 22 to 0 organization to help stop veteran suicide. 22 a day or more veterans take their lives. And I understand. And it's distant to a lot of people. They just don't get it. They don't know enough vets to understand how suicide can be that prevalent in a community of people that are so strong. It's because they are so strong that they hold so many things to themselves, and they just give up after a while. They get tired of the fight. So Right America Media, Juan, the owner and producer of Right America Media, who produces Vet Nation for Mike Arthur and I, he is matching up to $100, and Kim and his wife, the people who make my merchandise, are also matching up to $100. So order. You can find me on Twitter at Robe Regiment. You can find me on Facebook at TC Pearson. You can find me on Facebook at Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. You can also email me, Minnesota Black or TC Pearson at protonmail.com. I'm working on getting a merchandise site up so it'd be easier to order and pay. But please do order, and I'm serious, I will follow through. I did a challenge for Ann Quiner when her husband Scott was sick and dying and then ultimately died. I sent her donation the other day. It was small, but it was something. And I heard back from her. She's going to be coming on my regular show at some point. And if you come across any interesting stories between now and next Saturday, reach out to me and let me know. And don't forget, next Sunday, we're going to be doing a live stream play-by-play of the state of the state of Marxisota speech from Commissar Walls. We will be tuning into that together live. So pop some popcorn, pour yourself an alcoholic or non-alcoholic beverage, and let's just see next Sunday just how great the state of Marxisota is. Larry says you should have a viewer get-together event to go deer hunting. I'll bring the spotlights and salt licks. I think that's illegal, but maybe it shouldn't be. Great org. Vets don't get the help they need. I agree, Larry, 100%. Thanks for tuning in. Those of you that were here, Larry, thank you for the 10. It was a joke, but I love it. I appreciate it. More of you need to be like Larry. Be like Larry. That's going to be my new meme. Be more like Larry. And I just want you guys to know I appreciate the views, and I appreciate everything that all of you, and some of you, Larry and Kevin especially, have done a lot for me over the years. So I really appreciate it. So until next time, my friends, sic semper tyrannis.
We are going for liftoff in T-30. Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. Secondary guidance systems engaged. Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at